Thank you, councillors. We will get underway with the meeting for July 2024. Where does the year go? A reminder to those present in the chamber that this council meeting is recorded. It will be live streamed and will remain available to the public online. And I would ask Councillor Lehman to do the acknowledgement of country and the statement of values, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Acknowledgement of country. The Central Coast Council acknowledges and pays respect to the traditional owners of Lutruwita, Tasmania, the Palawa Pakana people. We acknowledge the Punalapana tribe of this northern country, and in doing so, we celebrate one of the world's oldest continuing cultures. And the statement of values. Guided by the diverse beliefs, experiences and backgrounds of the people we represent, we strive to make inspired and respectful decisions today that will build a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Moving on to attendance and apologies. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Dick Rose and Councillor Wiley. Moving on to item 2 is declarations of interest. Councillors and staff are invited to declare any interest they may have in any matter on the agenda. Any interest to declare this evening? Councillor Beswick.
I declare a perceived conflict of interest in respect to the matter relating to agenda item 10.1, the Central Coast Local Cultural Heritage Study. The nature of perceived conflict relates to my being the Legat representative on the Heritage Council of Tasmania. This is a perceived conflict of interest that does not affect my decision making in any way. Subsequently, I'll remain in the council chamber and participate in voting on this item.
Thank you for letting us know. Any other declarations of interest? No, there's none. Item 3 is confirmation of minutes. So that the council confirm the minutes for the ordinary meeting held on the 17th of June. Would a councillor care to move that motion? Councillor Viney, seconded Councillor Heskett. Any questions or comments on the minutes for June? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Item 4 is the Mayor's report. Nothing to report at this time. 4.2 is the Mayor's diary, a list there of events I've attended on your behalf and of those attended by Deputy Mayor John Beswick. Would a councillor care to move that suggested motion? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Seconded Councillor Lehman. Any questions about the diary?
Mayor, I'd just like to just comment on the Kiribati Independence Day celebration, which I was only too pleased to attend on your behalf. It was a fantastic evening. The singing was amazing, even though I couldn't understand a word they were saying, but the harmonies were brilliant, and their joy at sharing that with everybody that was there at the event. You know, they supplied all the food, they all cooked it themselves and shared that around the table. So as I say, it was just a great event to go in, and there was some debate about whether I would get up and dance, and just for the record, I didn't. I found myself in a nice little corner, so I didn't have to get up and boogie with them.
Disappointing, Deputy Mayor.
Anyway, but it was a great night. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. It is indeed a lovely celebration, and we are so lucky to have them in our community. Item 5.1 is Councillor Communication. I'm sorry, did we not move it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ian. Item 5.1, Councillor Communications. Any councillor wish to report on community groups or committees or events to which you'd like us to be aware? Councillor Heskett.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief continuation of our discussions regarding the Penguin 150 movements. No major movements at this stage, just a continuation that we are working towards a major sponsor at the moment. Looks as though the actions that are taking place is looking forward to a big event, and just continuing to spread the word. We'll have Facebook page up in the coming month or two, and then we'll try to spread the word. So I invite all the councillors who are on there to help share the news and spread that around. And the article will be in the Central Coast Voice as well, which is sort of the introduction to that, to know what's going on. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for more information.
Thank you. Fabulous. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to report that the band AGM we've just attended. The Mayor as patron, Councillor Casey and Amanda and myself attended. All the positions for the AGM were filled. Things are going really well for the band. they're very, very appreciative of what this council has done for them. And they continued to say, didn't they, Mayor, of the appreciation that of what we've helped them with. Well, they've helped us, of course. They're very happy with the new roof that's been put there on for them. And things are just going really well for them. Now, they're going to the Victorian National, in Victoria, the National Band Championships early next year. It's a big thing for them. They haven't been to one for a few years. They're raising money with their car washes, which is of every second or third Sunday. And they're all looking forward to another good year with us, with the council. And again, they're very appreciative of what we've done for them, and they continue to say that. And the roof, everything was it's just been good, and it's just a really good news story for us, or for the whole municipality. And we thank the Mayor for being the patron, and we had a good night. So
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Yes, a lovely gathering, and I was privileged enough to be shown the first floor of the municipal band rooms, and most of you didn't know that it was a two-storey building, particularly the Director for Infrastructure. And they now have a request for our budget this time next year, or as part of the 3-year plan. I'll explain the 3-year plan approach, but I look forward to sharing the first floor with the Director of Infrastructure in due course. But a great group, and you're right, Councillor Smith, they provide us great service, and we're grateful to them. Thank you. Any other reports? Moving on to 5.2, councillor questions on notice. No questions on notice were received. 5.3, councillor questions without notice. Councillors are invited to ask any questions without notice at this time. Councillor, how about I just say, does anybody have a question? No. Any questions?
No.
No, that's save us going around the table for no purpose. Thank you so much. 5.4, councillor motions on notice, none were received. Item 6, petitions and deputations. 6.1, no petitions have been received. 6.2, no request to address the meeting as deputations have been made. Item 7 is public question time. The public question time is conducted in accordance with Regulation 31 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations and the Council's public question time policy. I believe copies of the policy are there on the chairs in the gallery. Public question time is limited to a period of 30 minutes, and 4 questions were taken on notice at the June meeting, and the Council's responses are provided in the agenda for purpose of record. You don't have any questions on notice for this evening, CEO, so you don't have to do any of that reading out thing. So we will just open the floor, given that it is public question time. So should you have a question from the gallery, we would welcome it. If you're able, I would just ask you to come forward to where the microphone is for the purpose of streaming and for the audience to hear. Just state your name and where you're from. If we can answer your question tonight, we will do so if it's an appropriately worded question. If not, we will take that on notice and come back to you. So, and we have the opportunity to do that for the next 30 minutes. Yes, please, sir.
Hi there, my name's John. I'm a property owner and resident on Ironcliff Road.
Thank you, John. Welcome.
We have not received any information on the upgrade of what's going on that road.
Okay.
And we'd like to know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to affect us.
Okay. Whereabouts on Ironcliff Road?
I'm about halfway along at 730 Ironcliff Road there.
So that's
just the other side of Bernardine Park.
Yes, okay, fabulous. All right.
And if I may add to that,
Yes.
ma'am, I've seen in that report there that you've had equivalent, say, 390 cars per day going up that road to justify that. I doubt that is correct.
Okay.
I work from home. I'm constantly there basically all the time. And there's definitely not 390 cars per day going up there. I can assume that was taken over a time period when there's functions happening at Mount Noman Farm, which would be 390 cars on a given day, but not during any working day.
So your question to us is, why didn't you receive any information about the upgrade or were able to participate in that information session?
I did make myself present to the presentation that was held at the sports complex on October.
Okay. Yep.
But we asked questions and we never got any feedback from that.
Okay, all right. And what sort of questions might
Well,
they
basically,
have?
where is it going to affect our properties? Because the maps that they had shown there were showing that they were going to chew into our side of things, and as several other properties as well. And we weren't able to get any positive feedback. And up to this date, we still haven't. And we never received any invitation to that, whereas some of the properties did.
Yes.
Along with the surveying as well.
So 2 questions. One is about the information and the opportunity for you to get answers to your questions and be provided the information. And the other one is about the road count that would have supported a volume of that volume of.
As a resident there of coming on 9 years, the maintenance has been very minimal.
Yep.
And it probably wouldn't be in that condition today if it was maintained.
Understood.
Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, John. CEO, your response?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We will respond back to you there because we did have a number of public consultation elements there. Remember the manager, Paul. There were a number of times we've been out there as well too, and I don't understand why you and others have been missed out. That's how we'll certainly look at it. In relation to the maintenance of any road in council, we've got 5 deficits in a row. This council has 5 deficits in a row. Rates pay 54% of the budget we have. The rest is handouts. The handouts are generally from the other levels of government, and what we get for our roads is all we get for our roads, essentially. And what happens generally, unfortunately, is that we get stuff to patch as opposed to repair properly. We're trying to make the best we possibly can with the money we have. But your point is very well taken, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good. And we've got the information we need to, I presume we've got the information we need to write back to you, John. Either we've got your address there at 7:30. Terrific. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming. Any other questions?
Can we go to for 7:32? We had the business meeting yesterday after the headline in the Advocate.
Could I just ask, for the benefit of those listening online, if you could just introduce yourself and share with us whatever you wish.
So I'm Kylie. We're at 732 Arncliffe Road. We're quite alarmed at a number of residents that contacted me yesterday about the headline in the Advocate about a highway becoming a one. Obviously we had to Google then what a highway meant.
Yes.
We are still concerned about the value of funds that council, having been in deficit significant years on years, to warrant the cost benefit to more than just 1 or 2 taxpayers who happen to live right at the very end of that piece of road. We also, attended the consultation, raised multiple issues. We've had multiple face-to-face meetings with what we have now discovered was the previous project manager. I've emailed 3 times in the last 2 weeks requesting information about how that road plan affects our property and have been fobbed off multiple times. So we would very much appreciate. We have at least a dozen property owners who met at my house yesterday who would also value and appreciate some two-way communication about this project.
Thank you, Kylie. No, I appreciate that. CEO, any comment that you wish to make?
I'll give you my contact details so we can catch up and have a meeting this week or next week. Thank you. So I can learn more about those things that shouldn't be happening.
Good. Thank you. You'll share your contact details. Thank you. We appreciate you coming along and making us aware. Other questions?
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, Chief Executive Officer. My name's Kevin. I live here in Ulverstone. Questions without notice. With regard to the introduction and construction of wind turbines and other renewable energy projects in other areas of Tasmania and the Australian mainland, there have been financial benefits to local councils in the form of payments of rates and or financially supporting a local area in different forms. In the best interest of the community, with the proposal of rezoning or utilising of both prime agricultural land, as well as rural farms and rural residential blocks to construct renewable energy projects and associated infrastructure, including but not exhaustive to towers, transmission lines and buildings, are you, the council, and ye, individual councillors, supportive and aware of possible use, rezoning and utilisation of private farms and rural residential properties within the council and neighbouring council boundaries, including being fully informed and aware of the associated potential risks appearing on the mainland and across the world? If so, if these projects proceed, does the Central Coast Council or associated entities bear to receive remuneration from the corporations involved with the renewable energies projects? And if so, will this be reflected on the community's rate notices? Secondly, with the Central Coast Council currently having around $650 million in property and other right of use assets according to the financials in the 24-25 annual report and budget, can the council and councillors provide, in the best interest of the community, all copies of any original or current allodial titles and or all bill of sales and any lease agreements that the council or any other entity involved in the Central Coast Council have as assets, including all land, property, buildings, roads and footpaths, and any Crown land non-exhaustive under the council's management ownership and all lease agreements?
Thank you, Mr. Aboud. I'm happy to take the first question and see if I can respond, if you would, to the second question as you will. So as I understand it, your question in relation to the renewables and the renewable energy zone and any works that might arise out of that. Obviously, we have no development applications in front of us for Central Coast relating to wind turbines, but we certainly have transmission lines and a transmission line corridor that the RES would be reliant on. So do we have an awareness of the properties that it runs through and how it will affect the people of Central Coast? Yes, indeed we do. In my office, I have a map of every private land property that will be impacted by any of the transmission line proposals. And I have a list of all the property owners that are impacted, and I have met with many of them. So in relation to the awareness, yes. In relation to compensation, I'm happy to direct to seek the advice of the CEO, but even though there are some council, there's some public land that is under the management of council that will be impacted by any easements for the transmission lines, the compensation arrangements that apply to private property owners do not apply to our entities, local government entities.
No, Madam Mayor, that's a matter for the property owner and the proponents. There's things called Community Benefit Fund that RegFit, which is the state government, Tasmanian state government, are actually organising in relation to the proponents and the Community Benefit Fund. What that money looks like, how much it is and what it's used, we do not know at this stage.
But we don't receive any compensation for any of the corridors of the public lands, or in often it's road reserves or either sides of the road reserves. So there's no compensation payable to any local government entity for that, and obviously the compensation between the private landowner and TasNetworks in the case of the corridor. In relation to the second question, that was in relation to you.
I'll take that notice.
Take that on notice. Thank you. Thanks.
And I'm really glad the meeting wasn't a couple of Mondays ago. You might have seen me in a jacket.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the gallery? Michael, welcome.
I shouldn't say that to me.
Oh, I'll wait for your question and then I'll respond.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and to all councillors. No, it's just this only just came to my mind too. It was what was mentioned last week on the news, and this was what the Central Coast is beginning to do, and that's the sewage matter, how it's going to be handled and made. I can't remember the name of what it's going to be called, but it's what gardeners.
Biosolids.
But yes, it can be broken down and made put to better use rather than having tips and places like this where all this rubbish can be just dumped and let go waste. And if we can show just how well this can work in the long run with other councils, I think it won't be long before they start doing the same as well.
We are very excited about the opening of the Dalverton Organics organics processing plant And we're very pleased to be one of the 4 owner councils that took the brave decision to start Dalberton in the first place, because not only does that allow us to recycle our own green waste and turn it into a valuable resource, but it also means that we receive a dividend when every other council sends their product to the organic facility, so which we can use as revenue to do work in Central Coast. So yeah, thank you for your interest. It's a very exciting project.
I'll just ask one more. This is only if you feel it should be answered. Where did you first get the idea from to do this form of sewage reduction?
It's been in planning for many years, but that is best practice green waste management from across the world. I know the Dalberton staff have spent a fair bit of time overseas, both securing the preferred contractor to do the work. It's not new. It's not new science, Michael. There's nothing new under the sun anymore. The question is how you make it work for a volume and where you place it and who will fund it. And we're appreciative that the state and federal governments all fit to help us do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's very much appreciated with that information. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you. There being no other questions from the gallery at this time, I will move to item 8.1, which is council acting as the planning authority. Would a councillor care to move this suggested motion? Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Hiscott. Seem to be having trouble with my names. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 8.2, visitor accommodation caravan, visitor accommodation 32 Epsom Road, Penguin, and the application is there. You have a suggested resolution for you. Could I have somebody move that the resolution be accepted, please? I'm looking for the wording. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for this item?
I'm happy to move that, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Hiscott. Councillor Beswick, did you wish to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor, just briefly. Thank everybody that's put this report together, and also acknowledge the representative that's put in their concerns. I have a few concerns myself that in the end we don't want to have expansion of this type of development, that it ends up being more than one caravan and becomes a caravan park. This proposal is for one. We need to make sure that it doesn't actually expand from that, in my opinion. In this instance, I think that it's going to work reasonably well. It's on a reasonably large block. It's out sort of on its own to a certain extent, and I'm happy to support the report that's been prepared by our staff.
Fabulous. Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'd just like to say that the report was put together very well by the planning staff, very thorough, and it has one representation, but that representation doesn't warrant a refusal of the proposed visitor accommodation use, and therefore I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick, anything further to add to close?
I don't think there's anything further to add, Mayor.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. 9.1 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. You have a variety of documents and schedules there. You've been provided with updated schedules this evening for correspondence addressed to the Mayor and Councillors, and documents affixed with the common seal. You have 3 motions in front of you. Would a councillor care to move the recommended resolution for motion 1? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Viney, seconded. Councillor Lehman. Any discussion?
No. Very straightforward, very thorough.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion 1 is carried. Could a councillor care to move the recommended resolution for motion 2, that the council, in accordance with the Local Government Act, delegate its functions and powers in accordance with section 129. Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Seconded, Councillor Smith. Councillor Lehman, anything to add?
Just to state that this is to correct an omission that was previously missed. So yeah, happy to support this
Thank you.
correction.
Any other comments on that motion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Sorry, nay. Any nays? I neglected to ask. My apologies. And moving on, would councillor care to move the recommended resolution for motion 3 that is in front of you in relation to negotiation of terms, conditions and durations of agreements? Thank you, councillor Smith. Seconded councillor Hiskett. Councillor Smith, anything that you wish to say in relation to that?
It's all straightforward, and I think that's all we need to say on that one.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. That is all 3 motions associated with 9.1. Moving on to item 10.1, which is the Central Coast Council Local Cultural Heritage Study. You have a motion in 2 parts in front of you. After our work in this regard, would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for this item? Councillor Hiskett, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Lane. Councillor Hiskett, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a long road. This one has been built from all good intentions, as our older buildings were built. But it's, I think the report makes pretty clear the reasons and justifications for the outcomes from this. We obviously looked at the local heritage code, so that we had, it wasn't in the best interest of the community to continue with that aspect. From this, we have gained a significant document which gives information about some of the more important buildings within our community, and that is a useful document which we will be able to show people if they're planning to do any development into the future. But it felt like too blunt of an instrument to apply the historic heritage code onto these properties and the complications that may cause. I think this outcome allows us to move on from something that's been ongoing for quite a while. But I think, as I'm sure others will attest to as well, we do need to have a bit of a discussion about where to from now to, obviously the intent originally was to make sure that if there is a incredible building in Ulverstone or Penguin or the Central Coast municipality, that it should be considered before it is changed. And so now we need to find another way to make sure that happens.
Thank you so much. Other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
As I mentioned earlier, and I'll acknowledge again as being the Legat member on the Heritage Council, I'll be supporting the motion, but encourage us and the local government industry to perhaps come up with some alternatives to be able to move forward with some of this. I'll just read a couple of items for the record out of, if people are watching online. Council's primary motivation to undertake this work was concerned about the potential for significant built heritage to be lost through demolition without an appropriate protection such as the Heritage Code in place. Now, whether the Heritage Code is the right instrument, it's difficult to say. As Councillor Hiskett said, it is a bit of a blunt instrument. But this was instigated from when there was a property demolished in Ulverstone a few years ago, and the community brought to the council's attention, that how could that be demolished? There was a substantial building, and I know my wife was one of the ones that said, how can the council let that happen? At that time, we couldn't. So, considering all the work we've done and the records that we've got, it gives us a lot of data and the properties that have got significant heritage value to be able to be assessed into the future. I'll just give you a couple of stats that there was a heritage summit held a couple of months ago that I was able to attend. The economic contribution to the gross state product is $976 million a year, 5,052 jobs, $93 million in building and construction, 448,000 heritage-related visitors, and $6 billion in capital value. It's not a small scale for Tasmania as a whole state. So my encouragement is that we don't just sit on this, that we lobby the state government, because in the end, this all needs more funding, and the smaller councils haven't got the resources to be able to fund heritage staff. So, and at the summit, there was talk about how we do it better, and whether there needs to be another level of, you've got the state heritage, and then we perhaps may need a local heritage site. But in the end, that can only come from funding. So I'd encourage the state government to do that. I'd like to see us follow up with Legat to perhaps work through some processes. A couple of things that did come out of the summit, and whether it's something that, but it's the incentives. We all talk about sustainability these days, and old houses or old buildings, and this is not only houses, this could be industrial buildings as well, have got embodied energy in them. So as soon as you demolish it, you've lost all that embodied energy, and things can get repurposed. In some areas, councils are giving rate relief for people that may have a heritage building, and in the end, that's an encourage. Like, there's some stick and carrot type of situations. Exempt work for planning scheme, you know. So in the end, the person that's living in a property or owns a property that might be an industrial property that they're repurposing, it's the whole community's interest in that space. So that's a way of perhaps sharing the cost that it does to be able to repurpose or to renovate or whatever these properties. A lot of it's in education, I think. I think people get a bit nervous about it.
1 minute.
1 minute left.
1 minute.
All right, we've got time running there. Yeah, so there's a lot of work that can be done. I would encourage us not to, I don't see it as a waste what has been done. I think it's given us a lot of information to be able to use into the future, and look forward to seeing where it comes from here.
Thank you so much. Useful information for us all. Any other speakers? Councillor Smith.
Look, speaking on this, just being a new councillor, this was ongoing when I first joined, and I do support this document. Something that I found quite embarrassing just after I joined, front page of the newspaper, and I won't say what it said. Taught me a big lesson. I'm a great believer in people that own the property have the say. I'd hate to see councils try to list people's properties. I don't think it's a part of the council. It's state heritage that does that. That's what they're there for. And I think this is a good outcome. And that's much more I could say. That's how I feel about it. I've got an old property too, but I own it. And if I needed to demolish it, I will demolish it within the law. And we're not here to tell people they can and can't. That's all I'd like to say about that.
Thank you. Other speakers? No? I just wanted to add that as someone who was very keen for us to start this work, and as someone who received great representation from the community after the demolition of the Patrick Street property, I was keen to understand how we could do that better. And I suppose that from the outcome that I would have been looking for at the time was for such applications to become discretionary, so that there was an opportunity for people to voice their opinion, for council to consider how they could mitigate or provide alternatives. So it has been a long and drawn out process. The data sheets that have been generated for the properties are fabulous, despite the hiccups with errors earlier on. So, you know, to the points that others have made, it is the options that we had in front of us in relation to the local heritage code were too blunt. And the community told us very clearly that that's not what they wanted us to do, which is absolutely fine. And the process has worked well in that regard. But like the Deputy Mayor, I would like us not to lose focus on it and to continue to think about how we make representation to the state or to others, but how generally councils can do that better. We are charged with land use planning legislation. That is the responsibility that we have, and this is part of that work, and to find ways that we can actually ask our staff to do that better would be a good outcome. So let's not completely forget about it. I presume there are no other speakers. Sorry, who moved the motion? Councillor Hiscott. Thank you. Councillor Hiscott, would you like to close the discussion?
Thank you. I need to commend the statements from the other speakers. Yeah, I think all points are valid in that regard. It obviously is very important to the Tasmanian culture, but you know, I guess property ownership is an important part of the elements too. So I appreciate both those comments, and I think this is the only appropriate outcome we had for this situation with respect to the ratepayers, which is we're here to represent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Which takes us to 10.2, development application determinations. You've received the schedule for the determinations that have been made. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, please? Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Seconded, Councillor Hiscott. Councillor Lehman, anything to add or discuss?
No discussion.
Any discussion on the schedule? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 10.3, statutory determinations. You've been provided with a, was that one that we got? Oh no, what was a new one? No. Would a councillor care to move that? Thank you. Councillor Beswick, seconded Councillor Lehman. Councillor Beswick, any comments on the schedule?
Just one. I'd just like to thank the director for organising some observations of the beaches at West Ulster as far as dogs go. Interesting how there's been a couple of transgressions by some people, and they've been caught out with that. Hopefully the word will get around that it's not a free-for-all beach over there. So thanks director for that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hiscott.
Just in a similar vein, to notice that the trending lack of cautions and continued patrols at Midway Point and what's happening out there, it looks as though that obviously winter is probably less people there too, to be honest, but compared to where we were this time last year, I think that's basis really coming together, and I look forward to seeing how busy it gets this summer.
Indeed. Yes. Any other comments? No. Did you wish to close?
No, all been said.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 11.1, the financial report. And you've received the financial report for the period ending the 30th of June 2024. Would a councillor care to move? Thank you, Councillor Viney. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Viney.
Yes, so I would like to move that we receive the abridged financial report for the period ended 30th of June 2024. This, of course, I call it abridged because it's obviously has to go through the audit phase yet, and will come out as a full report once that has all been done. I'd just like to say that, as I've been saying for the last couple of months, is that it's a very detailed and transparent report, and well put together by our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Thank you, Councillor Lehman.
Just to acknowledge how clear this report is. Thank you very much for making it so clear. And also to acknowledge that we did get a cash boost during June for the financial assistance grant and the first payment for the Ironcliffe Road upgrade project grant. So that's well received.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No. Councillor Viney, did you wish to close?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2 is the receipt of the Auditor General's report on the financial statement of state entities, the local government sector. So this is a report on the whole sector, tabled in Parliament on the 23rd of May. Would a councillor care to move the suggested motion for this item?
Don't move me.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Beswick, did you wish to speak about the Auditor General's report on the sector?
I had a bit of a brief read through it, Mayor. It's this document is a general document across all councils, so you can sort of see how we're tracking. We're in some areas we're the best, in some areas we've got some work to do, but generally I don't think we're going too bad in amongst all that. We're best in transport assets, which was a really good one, I noticed. Paul, well done. Is that right, CEO?
We're the best in everything.
We can't always be the best in everything.
We're working.
Yeah, so no, it's an interesting document to have a read through if anybody's got nothing to do sometime.
Bedside reading. Any other comments? Statements? No, nothing to close. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.3 is the Personal Information Protection Policy. You've received a copy of the policy and the reason why it is tabled for you tonight. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, please? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Smith, did you wish to discuss the item?
Not a lot to say, but it's just an extremely important part of all businesses and especially council. And we've been fully made aware of it with our new CEO. It's a part of his vision to make sure everything is spot on in that. So it's just a good piece of work, and I think there's nothing more I could really say, just to recommend it to other councils, of course.
Thank you. Any other comments, speakers? Councillor Lehman.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the right wording, but this is just a good mechanism for us to have to safeguard people's privacy. So it protects people when they've got information relating to properties and property owners, any dog registration information, information about employees. So just to make sure that none of that information gets out where it's not meant to be. So it's an important policy to have and fully support it.
Indeed it is. Thank you. Any other speakers? No. Councillor Smith, anything to close? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 12.1 is the road underpass policy. You've been provided with the new policy and the comparison with the old, so you could appreciate the changes. And Councillor Hiskett would like to move this motion for 12.1. Could I have a seconder, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Councillor Hiskett, did you want to talk to us about road underpass?
I just have to say how much I look forward to reviewing this policy every 3 years. Absolute pleasure, this one. I think it has been used once or twice, but it is important to have. Regardless of the usage, it is important that we have a policy on this so that we know what to do under the situation that we may need one. But especially with, as we talked about, the amount of rural roads we have, especially that have. I do, yes, it's I think the second or third time it's come up in the last 6 years, and it just makes me laugh every time. But it is important policy. The changes are minimal but good. And yes, I think as I discussed prior to the meeting, I think it could potentially extend its requirement for review to 5 years, perhaps, or 4. It doesn't need to be reviewed quite so often, but that is okay. No other comments.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Councillor Carpenter, I was counting on you to have a contribution to make on the road underpass policy.
Well, Mayor, I've probably got a conflict of interest because I'm probably the last user of
Yes.
the policy. Is that right? I am. But in reality, we look at it as probably, it's not important, but I will take it to a case some 20 odd years ago when I wanted to put an underpass in and council had no idea, or a bit longer before Paul's time, no idea what it was about. So I had no policy.
Yep.
So with the 2 underpasses we do have in Central Coast, that's why this policy has been built and been constructed to make sure ones that want to put one in can do it systematically without too much stress.
Indeed, for the personal, animal and
Yes.
uh, environmental
And people's welfare,
safety of
road
welfare.
use as well.
Any further discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 12.2 is the acquisition of Ironcliff Road, which we've touched on this evening, and the interesting use of the word highway that appears in the Act. You have the report there for you to consider. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, please?
You're looking for me to say, mate.
I'm happy to move it if
Thank
you
you. Councillor Beswick, have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Beswick, your comment, please.
Yeah, as was our discussion prior to the meeting, it's an interesting terminology, a highway, and it just brings up all the wrong connotations when it's called a highway. I can see some benefits for tourism and so forth, especially with the car park up the end of the road and everything else with that. Unless we take over that highway, we aren't allowed, from what I understand, to be able to do any work on that road. And considering what's happening up Ironcliff Road to make the road safer for all the users and the residents, that it's the best time to do it. Considering we've got all the gear there doing all the other work, it makes much more efficient from a financial point of view, and it just makes pretty good sense. I would encourage that all the community members up in that area have some input in, or not input, but are informed of how things are going to work out, and their concerns and that are dealt with in an appropriate manner as well.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please?
Mayor, I will add to it. Probably, to go to the naming car park. It's now is the opportunity to acquire this, because in years to come, in decades to come, or 20 years to come, when we thinking back, we should have got that piece of road and upgraded it when the dial is used to its maximum. Well after our lifetimes. So it's a great time to do it. We do it there. The funds are there. The work's going to be done. And we just think of the highway terminology, and I go back to when we was looking at doing the road up right through Cooks Road, or Hales Road, as it's sometimes known. And they've always said, "Oh, I can't do it up because it had to be done to highway standards." So now I understand where all that terminology come from, Paul, which I couldn't understand before. So yeah, no, it's just a common sense thing to do.
Agreed. Any other speakers? No, I would just add that I think as long as I have been on council, I have had people asking me when we were going to take ownership of that road, when we were going to take custodianship of that road. And as you say, now is the, and likewise, highway standard, couldn't figure that out. Now I understand. And so now is a logical time to do it with funding support from others. Councillor Beswick, did you wish to close the discussion?
Yeah, just one comment, I guess, is again, as was mentioned prior to the meeting, that there's some work being done at the moment to perhaps change the terminology, because to me, to us, it's confusing, to the community, it's confusing when they talk about highways. So to have a change in terminology in that legislation would be beneficial, but that's all me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the meeting closed to the public. We have a number of matters that we can discuss, and we have the opportunity by absolute majority to close the meeting to consider a range of items there. Could I have a councillor move the recommended motion for 13.1, please?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Hiscott. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried, and the meeting is closed to the public at 6:49 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Kylie, John, you have some contact details for the CEO, and I'm sure he will follow that through there. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for coming. Michael, travel home safely.